Hari Om, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to Aditya Hrudayam workshops, learning sessions. First session is today, May 2nd. I hope you're all doing well and keeping safe. With that, let's get started with our session. First, let's do a prayer for Lord Ganesha. So as all of you know, before starting anything, it is customary in our culture to start with the prayer of Ganesha. So first I will say 1 to 2 words. Please repeat after me. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvighnam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Excellent. In this prayer, we are praying to Lord Ganesha, who has the huge trunk and a huge body, and who is resplendent, who is very shiny, very bright, like 1,000 suns. And we are asking him to help finish our task that we have begun today, to learn Aditya Hrudayam without any hindrances, without any obstacles, successfully, and he sure will help us out with that. Next, we are going to do a prayer to Sage Valmiki. Why are we doing a prayer to Sage Valmiki? Because Sage Valmiki is the one who wrote Ramayanam, and Aditya Hrudayam is a part of Ramayanam. And so since he is the one that gave us this excellent stotram for us to be able to learn and chant, we are going to treat him as our guru, our teacher, and then we are going to say a prayer to him. So please repeat after me. Kujantam Rama Rameti Madhuram Madhuraksharam Aruhya Kavita Shakham Vande Valmiki Kokilam. Excellent. In this prayer, we are praying to Sage Valmiki, and we are imagining him to be this beautiful, sweet cuckoo bird who is sitting on a branch of poetry. It's all symbolism. And he gave this beautiful, beautiful poetry of Ramayanam for us. So we are praying Valmiki, Sage Valmiki, in this prayer. Next, we are going to do a quick prayer to Lord Sri Rama. He is the Lord of Ramayanam, Lord Rama, Sita, Lakshmana, and Hanuman. So as we see the origin of the stotra and how Aditya Hrudayam came about, we will learn more about the incidents that happened in Ramayanam, right? So let's do a quick prayer to Lord Rama. Please repeat after me. Dakshine Lakshmano Yasya Vametu Janakatmaja Purato Marutiryasya Tam Vande Raghunandanam. So when he is sitting on the throne, Lord Rama, he always has Lakshmana to his right, Sita Devi to his left, and in front at his feet is Lord Hanuman. So we are always going to picture the beautiful assembly of all of them, along with Bharata and Shatrughna, even though they're not mentioned in this stotram. And then we are going to pray to all of them for a successful endeavor that we are about to start. Okay, now, so we are going to get into the actual session of what Aditya Hrudayam is and what we are going to learn in the next 3 sessions. So Aditya Hrudayam, Aditya is the name of sun god. He has so many names in which one of them is Aditya. because he is the son of Aditi and Kashyapa Prajapati. Since he is the son of Aditi, he is fondly called as Aditya. And you can imagine the name Aditya being so fond to him, because it must remind him of his mom every time somebody calls him Aditya, right? So Aditya is a very nice and beautiful form of name, one of the names of sun god, and one of the very fondly liked name by Surya Bhagavan also. Hrudayam is the heart. So in this stotra, it is a total of 31 slokas, and it is the essence of the sun god and what sun god is. So it is aptly named as Aditya Hrudayam because it gives the essence of sun god to all of us. So sun god on a day-to-day basis without sun, can you imagine life? Can you imagine the existence of any life, not only human beings, on this planet without sun god? So it is basic science. We all know what all we get. There is light that we receive from him every day, warmth that we receive from him every day, photosynthesis that enables the creation of food, the preparation of all the survival of the trees, plants, which in turn puts food on our plates, water, which is the integral part of our life, which we need for so many things during the day-to-day basis, on a day-to-day basis. So the formation of clouds, we all know the science and how sun god enables all these life essentials and gives them as a gift to not only human beings, to all living things on the planet. So we know that, and we receive those gifts every day. We use them and we take in those gifts every day, and we survive because of those gifts that we get from the sun god. So imagine on a day-to-day basis, when you are at school or when you are outside, a stranger comes and opens the door for you, holds the door open, or you drop something on the floor and he picks it up for you and he hands it back to you. What is the first thing that you say to them? Thank you, right? As soon as somebody helps us, small or big or tiny, whatever it is, when we receive something from somebody, when there is help involved, the first reflex in our civilization, in our etiquette, what we do is say thank you. So we have this big list of gifts that we are getting every day from the sun god, and we know that without that, our existence is not even possible. So we know that we are receiving these gifts every minute of every day. So isn't it our basic responsibility to thank the sun god for all of those gifts? So we are using them every day, every minute. So it is our basic responsibility, it is our basic etiquette to say thank you to the sun god. So all of us, everybody, and in all the creatures that are on the earth, the only intelligent being is humans. Although everybody receives this gift, can everybody turn around to the sun god and say thank you? No, that privilege is only given to humans. We are the privileged ones who have the gift of speech, who has the gift of intellect. So using all of this, at least one time a day, we should, it is our basic responsibility to look at the sun god and say a heartfelt thank you. Do you all agree with me? Thumbs up if you all agree with me. Yeah. Excellent. So far you're with me. So how do we thank Sun God? He's all the way up in the sky. And how do we really thank Sun God? So because we don't know how to thank Sun God, we don't know the actual procedure. We don't know how he will be receiving our thank you, how we can communicate with that. That's why our great gurus, in this case, our teacher is Agastya Bhagavan. His name is Sage Agastya. And in Ramayanam, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the story of Ramayanam. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of the story also. But for us to be able to say thank you to Sun God every day, Sage Agastya, in the middle of a battle between Rama and Ravana, he came down to the battlefield as Rama and Ravana were fighting, they had a brief break in between. And in that break, Agastya preached, gave this stotram to Lord Sri Rama. And in turn, sage Valmiki, who wrote the story of Ramayanam, he captured all the slokas that sage Agastya gave to Sri Rama and wrote it down for us. So we can also benefit from this great stotram. We can use it on a day-to-day basis for thanking the sun god. So before we go into the sloka, before we go into the stotra, we talked about sage Agastya coming into the battlefield while Rama and Ravana were in the middle of a mighty battle, fighting furiously, and they had a break, and sage Agastya came. Why were they even fighting? What is about the battle? What is the pre-story that led to this particular incident where sage Agastya had to come in the middle of a battle and give this stotram? So let's quickly, it's going to be a very quick overview of Ramayanam, very quick story of Ramayanam that we are going to take a look at. So I'm sure you're all very familiar with the story. This is just to go to the incident where we are actually looking at the stotra. So we are all can feel and we can experience the intensity with which sage Agastya gave this stotra to Lord Sri Rama. So Ramayanam, it is the story of. Can you all see the whole screen? Give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen. Okay. All right. So let's get back to the story then. So Ramayanam is the story of Rama and Sita. And this is the great story. And who wrote this? We talked about it, right? Sage Valmiki. He wrote the great story of Ramayanam. Lord Brahma, he gave him the boon or the power to see all the incident, witness all the incidents that happened in the life of Rama, Sita, and everybody around them. So with that gift, it is, imagine like you close your eyes or you're watching a TV and you're able to see everything, right? So Sage Valmiki had those kind of powers where he was sitting all the way in his ashram. He just had to close his eyes and all the incidents that happened throughout the story of Rama can be visible to him. That is the reason why what Valmiki wrote is exactly what happened with Rama, Sita, and everybody around them. Not only the outside visible incidents, but sage Valmiki also got the powers to read people's mind. All the characters that are embedded in the story of Ramayana, Valmiki got the power from Brahma to read their mind and write what they actually were thinking at that point of time. So with that great power, he was able to write the great epic of Ramayanam in 25,000, in about 25,000 slokas, and he divided it into 7 kandas, that means 7 episodes. So this is the story of Rama and Sita as we discussed. So the pre-story of how it all started is there used to be a demon king called Ravana who got a lot of boons and powers from the gods, especially from Lord Brahma. With all powers instead of responsibility, he got arrogance, he got very, very, very irresponsible, and he started tormenting everybody in all the worlds. So getting tortured by his power and not being able to do anything about it, all the gods, they went and complained to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the savior of everybody. Always anybody goes and complains, he immediately takes upon and helps them, right? So he said, do not worry. The only exception to the boons that he has received is that he can be defeated by humans and monkeys. So what I will do is I will take form as human and I will defeat him and I will relieve the worlds of his tormentation. So he took birth as humans like Rama, Bharata, Lakshmana, and Shatrughna, and he asked all the gods to take form as the monkeys. So together, Rama and Lakshmana, along with the monkey armies, who are the representation of the gods. That's why they're so powerful, because they are the form of gods that took the form of monkeys to help Rama achieve this huge task of finishing off the demon lord Ravana. So to become a human, the basic thing is to be born to a mother, right? So that's what Rama did, Vishnu did. So there was a king called Dasharatha Maharaja ruling Kosala kingdom with the capital city of Ayodhya. He had three queens, Kausalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi. Vishnu was born as four of their sons, Rama, Bharata, Lakshmana, and Shatrughna. Rama was born to the first queen, Kausalya. Bharata was born to the second queen Kaikeyi, and the twins Shatrughna and Lakshmana and Shatrughna were born to the third queen Sumitra. Soon they grew up to be this great princes, and they all went to the ashram of Vasishtha to learn all the education that they need to administer a kingdom, along with archery, all kinds of battle skills, all socials, all sciences, everything that the kings and the princes needed at that time. They mastered in all those tasks and all that education. And they came back to Ayodhya after their education. Then a sage named Vishwamitra, he came to Dasharatha Maharaja and he asked him to send Rama and Lakshmana along with him to the forest where he was doing a yajnam. Yajnam is a ritual that they do for the peace activities or for the welfare of the entire universe. So two monsters, they were interrupting his yajnam constantly, and Vishwamitra requested Dasharatha Maharaja to send Rama and Lakshmana along with him to the forest to protect his yagam and to kill or to defeat those two monsters, Maricha and Subahu. So Rama and Lakshmana, they traveled to the forest along with sage Vishwamitra, and on the way they encountered this huge monster called Tataka. She's none other than the mother of Maricha. She was a deadly monster who was creating a lot of havoc in the forest. So Rama swiftly took his arrow and punished her and killed her right at that instance. And then they proceeded to Vishwamitra's ashram, where Vishwamitra conducted his yagam successfully for 6 days. And Rama and Lakshmana stood guard for the yagam and protected them. On day 6, Maricha and Subahu, along with his armies, they came to the ashram to disrupt, to stop the yagam. But what they didn't know is that they will have to fight Rama and Lakshmana this time. And sure enough, Rama took swift arrows and divine arrows and killed Subahu in that battle. And with one arrow, he hurled away Maricha far, far, far away from that ashram, and he protected that yagam. So Vishwamitra was very happy with the success of Rama and Lakshmana. From there, they went to the city of Mithila. Mithila Nagaram was the city of Mithila was ruled by a king called Janaka, and there the king Janaka, he displayed this great mighty bow of Shiva, and he said this bow has been in our ancestry for many, many, many years, and nobody until now was able to even lift this great bow. So he took upon the challenge. Rama not only lifted the bow, but broke it into two pieces. So immediately, Janaka Maharaja, the king Janaka, he sent messengers and called upon Dasharatha Maharaja, the king Dasharatha, and offered the hand of Sita Devi, his daughter Sita Devi, in marriage to Rama. So Rama got married to Sita Devi, Lakshmana got married to Urmila, Bharata got married to Mandavi, and Shatrughna got married to Shrutakirti. And then they all happily went back to Ayodhya, their city, and everything, they were living happily, and Dasharatha Maharaja was administering the kingdom excellently. And at one point, Dasharatha Maharaja figured, okay, I'm getting old. This is time for me to retire and give the reins of the kingdom to the very capable son of mine and the eldest son of mine, Sri Rama. And he announced it entire in the city, and he got approvals from all his ministers, and all the arrangements were done to give the throne to Lord Rama. Meanwhile, in the palace, the Kaikeyi, the second queen, got this information about Rama becoming the king from her servant maid called Mandhara. So Mandhara, she just didn't give the news, but she put her own spin, a negative spin to the news, and she made it look like it is going to be a very unfortunate and very bad luck for both Kaikeyi and also her son Bharata. So she kind of scared Kaikeyi and put all these evil thoughts in her mind to stop this coronation of Rama at any cost. So then she advised Kaikeyi to use the two boons or the two wishes that Dasharatha Maharaja granted her back in the day, and ask for Bharata to become the king as the first wish, and also to send Rama away to the forest for 14 years as the second wish. So Kaikeyi fell for the evil preaching of Manthara. She went and asked these two wishes to grant these two wishes from Dasharatha Maharaja. He could not deny because those are the promises that were done and they always stand by their word. So by the wishes granted by Dasharatha Maharaja and asked by Kaikeyi, Rama immediately obeyed their words and started his journey to the forest. Sita Devi and Lakshmana, they also wanted to go along with Rama because they didn't want to stay in Ayodhya without Rama. So all three of them, they set journey from Ayodhya into the forest as per the wish of Dasharatha, King Dasharatha and Queen Kaikeyi. So they crossed many forests and many rivers, and they went deep into the forest. They met with great gurus. One of the sages that they met, Bharadwaja, he advised them to set up a camp or set up a cottage in Chitrakoot, the hill near Chitrakoot, and that's what they did. They built a nice house and they started living in Chitrakoot. Meanwhile, in Ayodhya, Dasharatha Maharaja fell very sick, missing his two sons Rama and Lakshmana. So he became very weak and eventually he gave in and he died because of that pain and agony of missing his dear sons Rama and Lakshmana. So at that time, his other sons, Bharata and Shatrughna, were visiting his uncle's place. So they had no idea of all these things happening in Ayodhya about Rama and Lakshmana leaving or Dasharatha Maharaja falling ill. They immediately came back to Ayodhya. First thing they learned everything that happened. They felt very, very, very sad and bad about it. They completed the funeral last rituals that had to be done for their father, Dasharatha Maharaja. And then immediately they went to the forest. Why did they go to the forest? They knew where Rama and Lakshmana were. They wanted to bring them back to Ayodhya. So there was a lot of discussion that happened between Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, and Shatrughna. But Rama stood his ground and he said, once I made a promise, I accepted what Father Dasharatha's wish is, and I came to the forest, and there is no going back. So you also follow his wish and order that he has given you to rule the kingdom in my absence. For 14 years, be the king of Ayodhya, and I shall return in 14 years. So the Bharata, he didn't have any other choice but to return back to Ayodhya, and that's what he did. But he went back with the shoes of Rama to be a representative of Rama and not as a king of Ayodhya. So in that place, after that, they couldn't stay in Chitrakoot for very long because of all the memories and everything that happened. So Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana, they left the Chitrakoot hill and they started their journey towards south. And during their journey to the south, they met with so many great sages. They got their blessings. They got divine arrows and weapons from all of them. And they also met with sage Agastya. Where did we hear this name, sage Agastya? In the beginning of this session, the stotram Aditya Hrudayam was given by sage Agastya to Lord Sri Rama. So that same sage Agastya, he gave some lot of divine weapons and powerful divine bows and arrows to Lord Sri Rama, because he knows what is coming. So he is preparing Rama and Lakshmana for that mighty battle. And he advised them to set up their camp in a place called Panchavati near the banks of river Godavari. So Godavari is a river that flows in the south, and they, as per the advice given by sage Agastya, they built a house, nice house in the banks of river Godavari in a place called Panchavati, and they were living happily there. It's a very peaceful place. They have everything that they needed in that area. So as the things were going smoothly and they were living a happy life there, one day a demoness called Surpanaka, she came by to that place. She is the in charge of the king and the kings of Janasthana, which is a kingdom nearby. And she goes around and she shows her power to everybody, and she displays her power. She gets whatever she wants. And as she was going around the forest, she saw this beautiful house, and she came in and saw the very handsome Rama and the very handsome Lakshmana, and she asked them to marry her. So they both rejected, and there was a lot of conversation that happened, and she quickly got angry and she tried to attack Sita Devi. So immediately Lakshmana stopped her, and he didn't want to kill her, but he wanted to punish her in some way. So he cut off her nose and ears as a punishment for trying to attack Sita Devi. So she immediately got very, very angry. She wanted to show her power. So she went back to the kings of Janasthana, Khara and Dhushana, who are her cousins. So she went back to them and she complained to them that Rama and Lakshmana tried to stop her from what she wanted and made up all these stories to make them angry. So immediately Khara and Dushana declared a war against Rama and Lakshmana. They came with 14,000 men of their army, 14,000. Imagine. And only Rama, single-handedly, he faced all of them, and with his mighty arrows and weapons. Even Lakshmana was not fighting that battle, because Rama asked Lakshmana to keep guard of Sita Devi. Only Rama faced off all 14,000 of them and then killed all of them and won the battle. So Surpanaka witnessed all of this battle, and she realized how strong Rama and Lakshmana are. So she didn't know what to do. Surpanaka is none other than own sister of Ravana. You all remember Ravana? We talked about Ravana, the demon king. To defeat Ravana, Vishnu was born as Rama. The same Ravana, his sister is Surpanaka, who got offended by Rama and Lakshmana, who witnessed the defeat of Khara and Dushana, and who's burning with his revenge. So what does she do? She goes back to Ravana and she complains about Rama and Lakshmana. First, Ravana did not pay much attention to it, but eventually she also put a negative spin to all her story, and she said, forget about Rama and Lakshmana. There is Sita, who is very, very, very beautiful. Only you are eligible to be her husband. So do something, anything, but cause pain to them, bring Sita back to Lanka and marry her. So immediately Ravana fell for that negative spin, negative story, and he flew to the forest and he asked the help of his friend Maricha. Everybody remember the name Maricha? When the Rama and Lakshmana as young boys, they went to forest to protect the yagam. They killed Subahu, one of the brothers of the who were stopping the yagam, and threw away the other person far away from there. That other person who survived that battle is Maricha. So he was doing a penance, he was doing tapas in the forest. So Ravana went and asked for his help to deploy his evil plan and to execute that plan and bring Sita Devi, abduct Sita Devi from the presence of Rama and Lakshmana and bring her back to Lanka. So Maricha tried to stop Ravana from this plan and tried to explain the strength of Rama and Lakshmana, but Ravana wouldn't listen. And because the bad was hovering all over him and bad things were coming to him, so he did not pay attention to a good advice. So they both got ready to execute the evil plan. As part of the plan, what Maricha did is he disguised himself as a golden deer, a very beautiful, attractive golden deer, and he started jumping around the ashram of Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita in Panchavati. So as they were doing their daily rituals, Sita Devi saw that beautiful deer and asked Rama to bring that deer to her to pet the deer. So Lakshmana warned Rama that it might be a magic created by the demons. But Rama said, so be it. If it is a magic created by the demons, I shall kill them. If it is not, I will bring the deer back to Sita Devi so that she can keep the deer as a pet. And Rama left to catch hold of the deer, keeping Lakshmana as a guard to Sita Devi. So the deer quickly, as part of the plan, started running, jumping into the forest and drove Rama far away from the cottage, from the house, deep into the forest. So there, Rama eventually realized that this is a magic created by the demons. So he took out his bow and arrow and he shot the deer. The arrow went quickly and pierced into the deer, and he fell down. And before he died, the deer turned into the original form of Maricha. And as he was dying, he yelled, "Hey Lakshmana, hey Sita," in the voice of Rama. So why did he do that? He wanted to create an illusion, or he wanted Lakshmana and Sita to think that Rama was in trouble so that Lakshmana will come away from the house. So that's exactly what happened. As soon as they heard that voice, Sita Devi immediately panicked. She asked Lakshmana to go into the forest and help out Rama. So Lakshmana, initially, he tried to explain that there is no danger to Rama and nobody can cause any danger to the great warrior Rama. But Sita Devi wouldn't hear. She insisted that Lakshmana go to the forest and help Rama out. So with no other choice left, Lakshmana reluctantly, he went into the forest. So now in the ashram, who else is left? Only Sita Devi is there. So that is the moment that Ravana was waiting for. He disguised as a saint and then he came by to the house. And as soon as Sita Devi came out, he immediately abducted her, lifted her up into the air and got on to his aerial flight called Pushpak. And he started traveling in the air. So as they were traveling in the air towards the south, Lanka, his capital city, a mighty bird called Jatayu, the bird tried to stop Ravana, fight with Ravana and protect Sita Devi. But Ravana is too strong for Jatayu. Even though he put up a great battle, eventually Jatayu lost the battle. Ravana took out his sword and cut off Jatayu's wings. So Jatayu fell down on the ground bleeding and he couldn't do anything else to protect Sita Devi. And in the aerial flight, Ravana along with Sita Devi went to Lanka. So Rama and Lakshmana, they eventually realized that they have been tricked and they immediately came back to their ashram and they tried to find Sita, but nowhere to find her because Ravana abducted her, right? So They looked around in the ashram everywhere, but nowhere to find. As they were searching, they came across the wounded bird Jatayu. Jatayu explained everything that happened, that a 10-headed monster came by to the ashram, abducted Sita Devi, and flew away in an aerial flight. And they traveled south. So Rama and Lakshmana completed the final rituals for the bird, and they also traveled south to search for Sita Devi. With the help of a monster ogre called Kabanda, they got the suggestion or recommendation that they travel south and reach a mountain called Rishamuka in the city of Kishkinda to make friends with Sugriva, the local monkey king there. So they followed that advice. They traveled to Kishkinda, and who do they meet? They meet the great, great, great warrior Hanuman. So this is the place where I normally get goosebumps. My most favorite part of the story, the meetup of Lord Hanuman and Lord Rama. Lord Hanuman immediately recognized Rama, and then he fell on his feet and he took them to the Rishamuka mountain and introduced both of them to Sugriva. So Sugriva and Rama, they promise friendship to each other, and Sugriva promises Rama that he will help Rama find Sita Devi. And Rama also promised Sugriva to defeat Sugriva's brother Vali to get back his kingdom of Kishkinda and make Sugriva the king of Kishkinda. So, as part of the plan, Rama asks Sugriva to go challenge Vali. And as they were fighting on one wrestling, Rama hides in behind the trees and shoots a very swift, mighty arrow at Vali. Even though Vali was very, very, very strong, he could not stand that arrow that pierced into his heart. He gets killed in that process, and Rama and Sugriva emerge victorious in that battle. So Rama gives the kingdom to Sugriva, and eventually Sugriva, after becoming the king, he waits out until the rainy season is over, and then he calls upon all his army chiefs to send out search parties to around the world to look for Sita Devi. So he formed groups of people, groups of team members, and sends them in different directions, some to the east, some to the west, some to the northeast. And he formed a very, very, very capable team, very strong team to go to the south and search for Sita Devi. That team, the main members of that team, very strong team, is Angad, who's the leader of the team, Hanuman, Jambavan, Nala, and other monkey warriors. So as they were leaving for search, Rama really trusted that team. So he called upon Hanuman and gave his ring as a token to give to Sita Devi once he finds her. So Hanuman immediately, along with his troops, went south. They searched for long time, but they couldn't figure out what to do. Then another mighty bird called Sampati, he gives recommendation to the team saying, I saw Ravana and Sita Devi going south across this sea into Lanka, and I see that Sita Devi is sitting under a tree in Lanka. So if you can cross this ocean and go to the other side, you will be able to find Sita Devi in Lanka. So, but it's a great sea, which is almost like 100 yojanas. So very far distance, big ocean. How do we cross it? Who can cross it? So all the monkey warriors, they assemble there, but they figure out that there is nobody strong enough to cross the ocean and go to the other side in one jump, except for Hanuman, right? So Hanuman takes up the great task of crossing the ocean and finding Sita Devi in Lanka. And then he starts off on his journey to cross the ocean. As he was leaping through the ocean, there are many obstacles that he had crossed using his intellect, using his strength, using his endurance, using his diplomacy. So that is a great thing about Hanuman, right? Not every time, even though he's very, very, very strong, he doesn't use his strength in all the places. Sometimes he uses his intellect. So a mountain Mainaka comes up, he just touches the mountain and moves forward. Goddess of snakes, Surasa, she comes up to test Hanuman. He quickly becomes small, goes inside her mouth and comes out. He uses his smarts there, speed, agility, not strength, and he crosses that obstacle as well. And then comes this deadly monster called Simhika, who catches on to people's shadows and pulls them down into the ocean. There he uses his strength, the mightiness of his strength. Simhika couldn't tolerate his strength. He tears apart all the internal organs of Simhika, and he comes out as victorious and as strong as he ever was. So in this instance, he used his strength. Then he reaches Lanka, where he gets stopped by the guard of Lanka called Lankini. So there he uses his strength again. He gives her a very strong punch, where she realizes that he's none other than Lord Hanuman, who came to look for Sita Devi, and she pranams her and lets him go inside Lanka. So he goes inside Lanka, he looks everywhere, every house, every plant, every tree, but he was unsuccessful initially to find Sita Devi. But eventually, he goes to Ashoka garden, where he sits on top of a tree and he sees this very sad looking lady crying and weeping. And then in that instance, uh, the king of that place, Ravana, with his 10 heads and very furious face, he comes and talks to Sita Devi and warns her to marry him in the next month. Otherwise, he's going to kill her. So he witnesses all of that, and then he realizes that that sad looking lady is none other than Sita Devi. So he prepares a plan in his mind. He goes down off the tree, he climbs down the tree, he goes to her gently, and he sings the song of Rama. He explains the story of Rama to her. And after so many trials and after lot of convincing, finally Sita Devi gets convinced that Hanuman is a messenger that really Rama sent. And imagine the great relief that she gets after meeting a messenger from Rama. For 10 months, she's been suffering in that forest, in that garden, and getting threats from Ravana day after day, not knowing whether Rama is going to come, not knowing that whether Rama is still alive or not also. And getting this news that Rama is alive and he's forming allies with Sugriva, the great army of monkeys, and he's going to come and rescue her soon. So she feels very, very, very relieved, and she smiles. After about 10 months, she smiles. So that is also a great, great, great moment in the story of Ramayana. And then eventually he says bye to her so that she can give the news to Rama about the whereabouts of Sita Devi. But before leaving, he decides to give a piece of his mind and advice to Ravana. But how do he get to Ravana? By getting his attention. So he goes to Ashoka garden. Other part of Ashoka garden, he destroys the garden. He makes a havoc so that he gets the attention of all the soldiers. Sure enough, he gets the attention. Ravana sends so many armies to capture him, but he defeats all those armies. Finally, Indrajit, Ravana's son, he demonstrates or sends a weapon called Brahmastra. Out of respect to that weapon, even though that weapon cannot harm Hanuman because of the boon given by Brahma, but out of the respect for Brahma, out of the respect for the weapon, he surrenders and presents himself in front of Ravana. He advises Ravana not to take upon enmity with Rama, Lakshmana, Sugriva, and his armies, and to bring back Sita Devi and return her to Rama. So Ravana, he gets very, very, very angry by that advice. As soon as he hears those words, he immediately orders his armies to punish the monkey, and as part of the punishment, they put lot of rags to his tail and they light up the tail with fire, thinking that it'll burn the tail of Hanuman and he will be punished aptly. But Hanuman, he quickly jumps from there. He takes that fire and he goes from house to house in Lanka and he puts fire on each and every house of Lanka and he destroys the entire city of Lanka. And with the prayer that Sita Devi does to Agni Deva, the fire god, not even a single scratch comes upon to Hanuman, and the fire does not give him any heat at all. So after all this, he says goodbye to Sita Devi one more time, and he returns back to Kishkinda and gives all this great news to Rama. So imagine how much comfort Rama must have gotten after hearing that Sita Devi is still alive and the whereabouts of Sita Devi. So he thanks Hanuman and he says, I cannot repay what you have done to me. All I can do is to say thank you and to give you a warm hug. And saying so, he embraces Hanuman. So soon, all the armies of Sugriva, along with Rama, Lakshmana, Hanuman, Jambavan, all of them, they set out from Kishkinda. They travel south near the sea where they had to cross the sea to go to Lanka to fight the great battle and to bring back Sita Devi. So to cross the ocean, they devise a plan to build a bridge that will enable all of them to cross the ocean and reach Lanka, the entire army of Rama. So they built the bridge successfully in 5 days, and all the armies of Rama, they cross the ocean and reach Lanka. In Lanka, they also form ally with Ravana's youngest brother, Vibhishana. Vibhishana is the youngest brother of Ravana, and he wants only one thing, that is the right thing. He is never a proponent for evil or bad. So he tried to advise Ravana against abducting Sita Devi. He advises Ravana to bring back Sita Devi to Rama, but Ravana rejects him and yells at Vibhishana. So Vibhishana runs away or comes away from Ravana's camp and joins Rama and Lakshmana in the mighty battle. So soon enough, the great battle between Rama's army and Ravana's army begin their furious fight, like hundreds and thousands. The numbers are huge. So let's just say millions and millions and millions of soldiers on both the sides. They fought a furious battle. And the great warriors on Rama's side, that included Rama, Lakshmana, Hanuman, Sugriva, Jambavan, Nala, Angad, Neela, all of them, they faced off the great warriors of Ravana, and they killed many of them, like Akampana, the Prahasta, the Nikumbha, all of them, Vajradamshra. They fought with them and they defeated all of them in that battle. Also, in a battle with the giant brother of Ravana, Kumbhakarna, he's a giant, like a big. If you all saw Godzilla movie, he's like the Godzilla of the Godzilla movie, right? So Rama, he took his mighty arrow and he killed his brother, Ravana's brother, Kumbhakarna, also in that battle. Hanuman also killed many, many warriors in the battle. And Lakshmana, he accomplished a great, great, great task in the battle. He killed a great warrior, Indrajit, who is the son of Ravana. More dangerous than Ravana. He has so many weapons, so many boons from all the gods, and not at all easy to win. Very crooked minded, always cheating, and in all the battles, he doesn't follow rules, and so that makes it even more difficult to kill him. So Lakshmana, he tackles Indrajit, he fights with Indrajit, and he kills Indrajit in the great battle. So that leaves the entire army of Ravana dead, all the main chiefs, all the commanders and brothers and sons who are great warriors, they're all dead. That leaves Ravana all by himself with his army, the left army. So Ravana, he comes to the battlefield himself, along with all his commanders and the army, millions and millions of army that is left. And Rama faces off with Ravana himself. They start fighting this furious battle. Around all Rama and Ravana, there are so many warriors fighting, but they all dropped their weapons and they were looking at Rama and Ravana. They were stunned by this amazing battle between Rama and Ravana. So that is the great battle of Rama and Ravana. So hours passed, but neither of them are succumbing to defeat. Neither of them look like they're going to be defeated easily. Neither of them look like they're going to accept defeat anytime soon. Both of them, of course, like it's been hours and hours, so they're very, very, very tired. At that instance, the charioteer of Ravana, so the one who handles the chariot of Ravana, he looked at Ravana that he is really tired. So he immediately brings him out of the battlefield to give him a quick break so that he can pull himself together, gather all his weapons, and go back to fight. At that instance, Aditya Hrudayam happened. So this is the story that led up, all the story that happened so far, that led up to the great stotram that we are here to discuss about, Aditya Hrudayam. When Ravana left to take the break, and while he was coming back, this instance of the origin of this great stotram Aditya Hrudayam happened. So I'm going to take a break or take a pause at this point for my narration of the story. From this point, I'm going to jump into the slokas of our stotram. What happens in this stotram is actually the story also progresses in this each of the verse of the or each of the sloka of the stotram. So as we are going through the stotras, we will discuss the story also as it happens. Okay, so where we are is Ravana went out of the battlefield to take a break. He's coming back. Rama is waiting for Ravana, and then we are going to start our Aditya Hrudayam. That is the beginning of Aditya Hrudayam, Sloka 1. Okay, so we have 5 minutes for today's session left. So, but I'm very happy that we covered the entire, almost entire story of Ramayana. I was planning to do 6 slokas today, but given the time constraint, we are going to do the first 2 slokas today, and then we are going to conclude today's session, and then we are going to pick up the next slokas in the next session next week, same time. So please repeat after me the first sloka. Let's go through the first sloka. I'm going to say 1 to 2 words. Just repeat after me. If there is any particular pronunciation that needs a little bit more attention, I'm going to tell that separately. But if it is simple words, let's just go through them by repeating them. Okay. Tato yuddha parishrantam samare chintaya sthitam Ravanam chagrato društva yuddhaya samupasthitam. One more time, okay? Tato yuddha. Yuddha, there is DDHA, that means there is the and the under it. So there is a need to say, stress the letter the. So yuddha, it becomes yuddha. So one more time. Tato yuddha parishrantam samare chintaya sthitam Ravanam chagrato društva yuddhaya. Same word again, yuddha. It needs a little bit stress there for the and the together. So yuddhaya samupasthitam. So excellent. So we are going to do a quick meaning of this sloka, and then we are going to conclude this session keeping time in mind. But we are going to pick up where we left, and we are going to start with this sloka in our next session, and then we are going to progress from there. So as we said, they took a break, and Ravana is coming back from the break, and Rama is looking at Ravana coming back. So in that battlefield of where Rama and Ravana were, Rama stood worried. Yes, that's exactly what Valmiki wrote. The hero of our story, the Lord of Lords, Vishnu's form Rama, he looks worried. So nothing to worry about. That is the human nature to worry, right? So next week, I'm going to elaborate a little bit more about worry and how this stotram will help us relieve that tensions, really relieve that worries. But for now, let's just understand that it's been hours and hours since they've been battling. In that battlefield, Rama is looking at Ravana coming back and he looks worried. Why does he look worried? Because he doesn't know how to defeat him. He has been trying his level best. It's been hours and hours, and he is not even being able to do any big damage to Ravana. So that is why he is looking worried. And then he's looking at Ravana, who's coming back prepared to fight the battle again. Sure, we know because Valmiki had mentioned that Ravana is also tired and his charioteer gave him the break. But Rama, he is an opponent, he is looking from his side and he doesn't know the state of his enemy. He's thinking, okay, he's coming back and he looks as strong as ever. And I've been in this battle for hours and hours. I've been using all the weapons that I know of and I have, but I'm not able to defeat him. I'm not able to kill him. So Rama stood worried as Ravana returned back into the battlefield, not knowing what to do and how to proceed in this battle. So imagine the face like Rama being a little worried and Ravana returning back from his break. So with that, we are actually going to conclude this session. Next session, we're going to pick it up from the same sloka. I'm going to tell why he's worried and why it is normal to worry and what will give us the relief from all those worries and all those anxieties. That's where we'll pick it up next week. So excellent work. Let's conclude the story session and Aditya Hrudayam Sloka sessions today. And we are going to do a Guru Vandanam, and then we are going to do Mangala Shasanam, and then we are going to conclude our session. So in this instance, our gurus for this great stotram, Agastya, sage Agastya, who came down to that battlefield and gave this excellent stotram to Rama, in turn, which is available to us for us to use. And how is it available? Because of Valmiki, he wrote it in Ramayanam, so it is available for us. So to both Agastya and to Valmiki, we are going to do Guru Vandanam, which is the salutation to the teacher, and we are going to do a slokam for both of them. So please repeat after me. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo, Maheswaraha, Guru Sakshat, Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So in this sloka, we are saying Guru is the form of Lord Brahma, Guru is the form of Lord Vishnu, Guru is the form of Lord Shiva, and he is the absolute Parabrahma Swarupam. Parabrahma, the form of Parabrahma. So to that Guru, we do Namaskaram and pray to that Guru. And then we are going to do Mangala Shasanam. So the greatness of our culture, the greatness of our epics, the greatness of our education is when we do prayer, we don't do prayer for just for us, who we have around us, or just people that we know. We pray for everybody in the entire world, and that's what we are going to do. So we are going to repeat this first line 3 times, where we are asking the Lord to protect the entire world. and keep it safe. Even more, it's even more needed now than ever. So let's do a heartfelt prayer to the Lord to protect the entire world and keep it safe. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. There is a spelling mistake here. There is Bhavantu, bhavantu. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Excellent work. With that, we will conclude today's session, Aditya Hrudayam Workshop 1. Let's meet again same time next Sunday, and we will continue our sessions next week. Sarvam Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.